was happy. Some of Kwami's relatives, who had ignored the land for years, became jealous. They didn't like seeing Kwami and Emily succeed. One night, they sneaked onto the farm and destroyed some of the crops. When Kwami saw what had happened, he felt his heart. Once upon a time, in a small African village, there lived a 25-year-old young man named Kwami. He was very ambitious. While other young men his age dreamed of adventure or moving to the city, Kwami had a different dream. He wanted to turn his family's barren land, which had been abandoned for years, into a thriving farm. The dry soil didn't scare him. In fact, it only made him more determined. Every day, he would walk past the empty land and imagine it full of green crops, vegetables, and fruits. He loved the idea of growing things, of watching a seed turn into something that could feed others. One day, as he walked through the dusty fields, he met Emily, a bright and determined girl who shared his vision. Together, they set out to do what no one thought was possible: bring life to the land and create a future that could change their entire village. Every weekend, Kwami and Emily worked on the land, planting seeds, watering them, and taking care of the soil. It was hard work, but they didn't mind. Slowly, little green shoots began to appear. Soon, the barren land was filled with rows of corn, tomatoes, yams, and more. People in the village couldn't believe their eyes. But not everyone was happy. Some of Kwami's relatives, who had ignored the land for years, became jealous. They didn't like seeing Kwami and Emily succeed. One night, they sneaked onto the farm and destroyed some of the crops. When Kwami saw what had happened, he felt his heart sink. "I can't do this anymore," he said sadly. "What's the point if people are just going to destroy our hard work?" Emily saw how hurt Kwami was, but she wasn't ready to give up. "Kwami," she said gently, "we can't let them win. You have a gift for farming, and we've come too far to stop now. We'll plant again, and this time, we'll make it even better." Kwami wasn't sure, but Emily's words stayed in his mind. Slowly, he started working on the farm again. Little by little, the crops grew back. Soon, the farm was more successful than ever before. People came from other villages to buy their fresh crops. Kwami even gave away food to those who couldn't afford it. The farm had become a place of hope, and everyone in the community looked up to Kwami and Emily. They had done something amazing together, and their love for each other grew stronger. As the seasons passed, Kwami and Emily's farm became the talk of the village. Even elders who had doubted them now came to see their lush crops, praising the young couple for their hard work and determination. Kwami and Emily didn't just grow food, they grew hope in their community. People started asking them for advice on how to make their own farms successful. One sunny afternoon, while Kwami and Emily were harvesting ripe tomatoes, Emily said, "Kwami, what if we could help even more people? We could teach them how to farm and maybe start a market where everyone can sell their crops." Kwami wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled. "I like that idea. If we can make our farm grow, we can help others too." But just as they were planning how to teach others, another problem appeared. The weather had been dry for weeks, and the sun seemed to get hotter every day. The crops were thirsty, and no matter how much water Kwami and Emily used, it wasn't enough. Slowly, the plants started to wither. Emily looked worried. "Kwami, what are we going to do? If the crops die, we won't have anything to sell or give to the people." Kwami sat under a tree, deep in thought. He remembered stories his grandfather used to tell about how the village survived tough times. "I think I know what we need to do," he said finally. "We need to find a way to bring more water to the farm, even when it doesn't rain." "But how?" Emily asked. "We'll need help," Kwami replied. "Maybe we can build something to collect rainwater when it finally comes. If we don't give up, I know we can solve this." Emily nodded, her determination returning. Together, they started talking to people in the village, asking for ideas and learning new ways to save water. Every evening, they stayed up late, drawing plans for the water system they wanted to build. But the challenge was bigger than they expected, and Kwami started to feel the weight of it all. Could they really keep the farm alive? Or would the dry season ruin everything they had worked for? The days grew hotter, and the ground became even drier. Kwami and Emily worked tirelessly to keep their crops alive, but it was clear they needed more than just water from their small well. One evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Kwami stood at the edge of the farm, staring at the wilting plants. "We need to find water soon, Emily," he said quietly. "If not, we'll lose everything." Emily came to stand beside him, her face filled with worry. "We can't let that happen, Kwami. There must be a way." The next day, they set out on a journey to find answers. They walked to the neighboring village, where they heard stories of farmers who had faced similar problems. One old man told them about a special way to collect rainwater and store it for dry times. "You see, the rain may not come often, but when it does, you must be ready to catch every drop," he said, drawing pictures in the dirt to show them how to build a water tank. Kwami's eyes lit up. "We just need the right materials and some help." When they returned to their village, they gathered the few tools they had and called on their friends to help. Together, they built a rainwater collection system with pipes and large tanks to store the water when it rained. It took weeks of hard work, but finally, their water tanks were ready. Now all they needed was rain. Days passed, and Kwami and Emily waited, hoping for even a small shower. The sky stayed clear, and the sun continued to burn down on the crops. Then, one afternoon, dark clouds began to gather. Kwami and Emily rushed outside, looking up at the sky in excitement. "It's going to rain," Emily said with joy in her voice. Soon, the first drops fell, and then the rain came pouring down. Kwami and Emily watched in awe as the tanks filled with water, knowing they had saved their farm. With the stored water, they could keep their crops alive through the rest of the dry season. But their victory didn't last long. One of Kwami's greedy relatives, who had been jealous from the start, saw how the farm had survived. Angry that Kwami and Emily had once again succeeded, the relative began spreading rumors in the village. "They think they're so smart, but they won't share their water with anyone else. They're keeping it all for themselves." Soon, whispers filled the village, and some people began to turn against Kwami and Emily. They didn't know that Kwami and Emily planned to share the water with others. Now, Kwami and Emily faced a new challenge: how to prove their kindness and win back the trust of their neighbors. Kwami and Emily felt hurt by the rumors spreading in the village. They had always wanted to help everyone, but now people saw them as selfish. "What do we do, Kwami?" Emily asked, her heart heavy. "We worked so hard to keep the farm alive, and now the village doesn't trust us." Kwami thought for a moment. "We have to show them who we really are, Emily. Actions speak louder than words." The next morning, Kwami and Emily went to the village square. There, Kwami stood up and called for everyone's attention. "We've heard the rumors," he began, his voice strong, "but they are not true. Emily and I built the water tanks not just for ourselves, but for the entire community." Emily stepped forward with a smile. "We've always dreamed of helping everyone, and this farm belongs to all of us. If you need water for your crops, come and take what you need." At first, the villagers were silent. Then, one by one, they began to realize that Kwami and Emily had always cared about the community. Slowly, they approached the young couple, asking for water to save their own farms. Kwami and Emily opened their tanks to everyone, sharing the precious water they had collected. With the help of the water, the village farms began to thrive. People came together to work side by side, growing crops, sharing food, and supporting one another. The rumors disappeared, and the villagers were grateful for Kwami and Emily's generosity. As time passed, Kwami and Emily's farm grew bigger than ever. They became known throughout the region for their kindness and wisdom. Together, they taught others how to build water tanks, grow healthy crops, and support their communities. Finally, on a peaceful evening, Kwami and Emily stood together, watching their farm, which was now full of life and beauty. "We did it, Emily," Kwami said softly. "But we didn't do it alone. It took the whole village to make this possible." Emily nodded. "And that's the lesson, Kwami. When we work together and share what we have, we can face any challenge." The moral of the story: true success is not just about what we achieve for ourselves, but how we share our blessings with others. When we work together and care for each other, even the hardest struggles can be overcome.